Good morning. I'm so sorry that I am late. I have the best excuse in the world, which is that I got up early to watch men's hockey at the Olympics. Team USA beat Canada. They won the gold medal for the first time since 1980. Wow, what a game. If you didn't watch it, you missed a hell of a time. It was so good. Listen, I'm not like a sports gal normally, kind of not my thing, but I can get behind a good hockey game every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Wow, it was unbelievable. Team USA got the first goal in the first period. Team Canada got the second goal at the end of the second period. It went no goals in the third period. It went into sudden death overtime. Team USA got the goal and like the first minute and a half of sudden death overtime and won the gold medal. And the Canadians, they look so sad. Oh my God, it was great. It was so good. Wow, it was just so inspiring. I just loved it. It was great. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Angela. I am a front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I grew up in a hockey family. My brother, Tom, he played hockey his entire life. My dad coached hockey. So I can get behind a good hockey game. And I got to tell you, the NFL, the NBA, MLB, they don't have anything on the NHL. Hockey kicks ass all day long. It was so good. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel really inspired. So it was so much fun to get up. And I didn't really watch the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I normally Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, I love all the Olympics. I didn't really watch the Olympics this time. I don't know why. I think part of it is because I was really following closely along to the Nancy Guthrie case. If you don't know this story, Savannah Guthrie is the co-host of the Today Show on NBC. She is like America's sweetheart. Her 84-year-old mother, who lives alone in Tucson, Arizona, was abducted and taken from her home 3 weeks ago, and they can't find her. They don't know where she is. It's a tragic story. So I've been following the Nancy Guthrie case pretty closely. And there's just been a lot going on in Minnesota with, I don't really want to get into it necessarily, but there's been a lot happening in Minnesota the last couple of months. We've been once again in the national and international news. So I didn't really watch the Olympics this year, but when I saw that the final game between Team USA and Team Canada was this morning, I got up and watched it, and it was just so fun. It was just really fun and inspiring, and I'm feeling very patriotic right now. So anyways, here we are. So thank you for waiting, because I really wanted to watch the gold medal ceremony and hear the national anthem. So good morning, Malik. Hello, USA, USA. Yeah. It was really awesome. Hello, welcome. Hello. We're so happy to have you here. Saeed is back today. Hello. Hey, do me a favor. Like the video if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. I stream Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Generally, I'm go live at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We hang out, we build stuff. This is a vanilla channel, so I don't use any frameworks or libraries here. I just do static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I know frameworks and libraries are important. You most likely will not be able to find a job without knowing how to use those. But I really want to encourage people to learn vanilla or just develop a better understanding of their vanilla skills. I think it will help you in the long run. So that's what we do here. And if you're hanging out on Instagram, follow me over there as well. I would love to hear from you. So there's that. How's everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Okay, Should we get started? If you would like to have your messages read out loud to the class, go ahead and put them in the chat. And Said says, I really appreciate your storytelling style. It naturally makes learning and improving English more enjoyable. Good. I do get feedback from people who, I have a sizable international audience who tell me that this is a good place for them to practice their English in the chat. So I'm glad. I'm glad that this is a place where you feel comfortable practicing your English and hanging out and chatting with us. I think that's really cool. So I only speak one language. If I could learn another language, I would either learn French or Turkish. I think the Turkish language is so interesting. And I think French is just really beautiful. So I don't know. But I've never actually taken the time to learn. I guess my second languages are, if I had to pick a second language though, CSS, that's a language, right? It's not programming, but it's certainly a language. I feel like I speak CSS, as it were, fairly well. Well, let's get started, shall we? This is what we're working on. So we have all the HTML done for our home page. My process when I build a multi-page site is I generally do the entire home page first. Header, footer, everything in between. We make it all responsive. We lock in our accessibility. We've sort of defined all of our styles for a layout or a grid, a color palette, things like that. Once you complete an entire page from top to bottom, then start working on your inner pages. Once you get into those inner pages, your header and your footer are done. They are responsive. They are accessible. You have literally built half of your website just by completing one page. And then all you have to do is build out that main section, that main intersection between the header and the footer. And by the time you get to that, look at everything that you will have defined. You'll have most likely defined all of your styles for your headings, your H1s, H2s, H3s. You will have a system down for how you're styling your images. You will have styles defined for your layout. You know where you're using grid, you know where you're using Flexbox, or maybe you're using all grid, or maybe you're using all Flexbox. You have all that stuff figured out by the time you get to the inner pages, because your home pages generally are so jam-packed, right, with stuff. So if you're approaching a multi-page layout, just grab the home page and build it out top to bottom. And I promise you, building out those inner pages will go so incredibly fast. So that's what we're going to do here. Technically we have 4 pages for mock-ups. I think this is going to end up being 5 or 6 pages, but I'm kind of not sure yet. So yeah, we're going to play it by ear. And this is another thing. If you were working at we'll just say an agency, for example, you would probably be given detailed mock-ups for every single page, every single layout, every single view. I don't work for an agency. This is just little old me here, and we're just practicing. So I definitely take liberties sometimes with these styles and these mock-ups. That's just how I work. If you are actually working for an organization or a freelancing job and you're being given detailed mock-ups, you obviously want to follow those very closely by whatever guidelines that they have established. But like I said, I take liberties. I'm a little loosey-goosey. I try to stick to the mock-up, but I also exercise a little bit of creative freedom, and that's just my process and how I practice things. So take from it what you want. Okay, so we're officially starting our CSS. We have written all of the HTML top to bottom for the home page. So let's get started. Let's actually go live with this page, which we actually haven't done yet. Let's see here. And it looks exactly how I would expect it to look, because we haven't written any styles yet. But we are going to have this we're going to have this wrangled in here shortly. We do have to write a few more global styles, which I was thinking about this yesterday after I finished. I was thinking to myself, why didn't I do that? Why did I feel like why did I stop at the body? Oh, the other thing that we need to do today is we need to optimize our images. Let's do that at the end because we do have like a gray box as a placeholder image in right now, and that's completely fine. So let's just do that at the end. We'll wrap up with that. So we have some, and I am going to use this salmon for now, but I eventually want to switch this to something else. Should we do another variable? Can we do something just called like accent? And then can we put in a variable? Can we do this? Does that work? And then, so do we not need that? So let's see if this works. I've never tried to do this before. I've done this in SAS a gazillion times. It's a really good way to manage your colors, especially if you haven't really decided on a color palette yet, which I technically have not. I know that I don't want to use this salmon, but I haven't taken the time to find another color yet. So if I could just use accent and then switch this out later, that would be ideal. So let's just test it. That works. Nice. I like it. I like it. And Malik says, for root, nope, you just need var when you're actually calling the color. Yeah, nice. I like this. So now we can proceed with the color that I know. Oh wait, it does that. It is interesting. Learn something new. Yeah. So now we can proceed with what we have here. And then later, so we'll use accent for now. And then later we'll be able to switch this out and it'll just switch it all out. So that's a really good way to deal with things. We did this in SAS all the time, where you would have your, let me show, I want to show you an example of how we used to do this in SAS. I'm going to have to dig back a little bit. Let's see here. Because it's a great way. It's a great way to does this, how old is this? Pretty old. Let's see here. Do we have a SAS folder? Components. Base. Mixins. Yeah, right here. This is a great example of a way. So we have descriptive variables and then we have functional variables. So the functional, where we have like a primary, secondary, and a tertiary. Yeah, this is a great way to do it. Where you can, later you can come back and swap colors out. You know, maybe you didn't check to see if your color contrast was up to snuff. Or maybe you just changed your mind. That happens all the time. Sometimes, especially with like a mock-up, even a high fidelity mock-up, really detailed. Sometimes once you see something in the browser, you need to change it. You just know, or the client decides to change it, or the designer decides to change it, whatever. And rather than changing out a variable, like with a really descriptive variable, turn it into a functional variable. Use primary, secondary, tertiary, and then it's really easy to swap those out. And I feel like you just didn't used to be able to do this with vanilla CSS. But I used Sass for over a decade. I mean, I still kind of do. So I wasn't staying really on top of what you could do with vanilla CSS until I sort of made this change myself this last year. So the fact that you can do this with vanilla is pretty cool, that you could have a descriptive and a functional variable like that. So it's a good way to do it if you're managing a lot of variables. So and Rahul is saying to use inherit. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do that too. That would also work. This is how I do it, but you could definitely do it that way. And Malik says, oh, okay, I misread it. I thought you were reassigning it. I didn't realize you were making a new variable named accent. Yeah, so that's the we call those descriptive and functional variables. And Rahul says, this works because in a scenario where the children of a wrapper should be another box sizing, then only changing the wrapper's box sizing will be enough. Hang on, I have to read this again. This works because in a scenario where the children of a wrapper should be another box sizing, then only changing the wrapper's box sizing will be enough. So I think that you're pointing out why we want to use inheritance rather than just defining it twice. Is that what you're saying? That this should be inherit. I mean, so does that mean that that's wrong? Is this wrong, or should the wild cards be inherit? You're not wrong, but you are skipping the pattern that makes this more flexible. What you have now, that works. Everything becomes border box done, but the more common pattern is this. Why inherit is preferred. Okay, so this is good. We're learning something new. Rahul is helping us get better and more semantic. Why inherit is preferred. Using inherit makes HTML the single source of truth. So if you ever change HTML box sizing content box, everything automatically follows. With your version, you're hard coding border box twice. That removes flexibility. It's not going to break anything. It's just less elegant. Why this pattern became standard. This approach comes from a well-known technique popularized by people like Paul Irish. The idea is set the root once. Everything else inherits it. You can override specific components if needed. It's cleaner and more scalable, especially in larger projects. It's the modern reset pattern and gives you more control long term. Since you're teaching vanilla CSS and okay, this is I don't like it when it does this. Do you not know that I'm actually streaming now? Okay, fair point. I will change it. Thank you, Rahul, for pointing this out. Boom. Look at that. You learn more here by accident than you do by design. There we go. Okay. Well, let's get going writing some global styles. These are styles that I like to write just to kind of, I guess, pull. These are just global styles that I like to write. So you may have a different way of doing it. This just works for me with my experience. So the first thing I like to do generally is take the margin off of figure elements. Let's go ahead and make our images display block. They are by default display inline. And I'm going to say max width 100%, height auto. SVGs are by default also display inline, so I'm going to change this to display block. I like to, you can see here that our SVGs are gigantic because they're not constrained at all. So I'm just going to make them width 3 rems, and it's likely to change. I'm just trying to get my document under control. Height 3 rems. And that automatically gets things under control. Here's the other thing that we need to do. We have control with CSS over how we style every aspect of an SVG. However, many SVGs have inline styles. So we need to get rid of those inline styles. So let's see if we can find them. I don't see any here. So we're looking for fill or stroke. So let's just search fill equals. And if you see fill equals none, that's completely fine. Just leave it. That means that that's like literally the style of the SVG. Let's just go through. Fill equals, there we go. We're looking for anything with a fill that has an actual color. And I don't see one. So now we're going to look for this stroke current color. So we want to remove current color. We want to keep the attribute. We want to remove the value. So let's just select anything with a current color, stroke current color. And it says here there are 9 selections, and we're just going to take those out. So we leave the attribute, we remove the value. Now we can style either the fill or the stroke, whatever the SVG calls for, pretty easily with CSS. So if you're having trouble styling your SVGs, this is my experience. It's either because you haven't set the SVG to display block. When it's display inline, it's very difficult to style because you really can't apply padding and margin and do all the things that make it easy to adjust a layout. If you're having trouble setting a new color or something like that on your SVG, it's probably because there's an inline style that you have to remove. So keep the attribute, remove the value. Those are my 2 pieces of advice. The next thing that I like to do is I like to, if you're not sure if your SVG should be styled with either a fill or a stroke, just do this. We'll do fill, blue, and then let's do stroke, red. And this is going to tell us right away which SVGs are which. Beautiful. So our social media icons all get styled with the fill, and I would call these more functional icons right here, all get styled with a stroke. I'm just going to leave those in until I actually get to the point where I'm literally styling this thing. And then I know what I need to do to fill them in. So this is it has taken me years to figure this particular set of things out about SVGs. I'm not being very articulate today. It's taken me years to figure this out. And once I did figure this out, it made SVGs a lot easier for me to deal with. So. All right, let's keep going. What else? What else do we want to do here? So I like to, for buttons, I know that I want to remove the default styles for buttons. I know I could just do appearance none. I don't like doing that. So you may have a different approach. This is how I'm going to do it. I say border, none, background color, transparent. I'm going to say cursor, pointer. Buttons by default are display inline block. I'm going to change it to display block. Yeah, and we're probably going to end up putting a little bit of padding on these buttons, but you can see already everything here that was a button, we've removed those styles. And then once we get to the actual styling, we'll go ahead and add some. If we need to add more styles back in for our global styles, we can. If we need to make them unique or specific to whatever the design calls for, we can do that too. No big deal. The way I style buttons is depending, you know, a design can have multiple button styles, right? They could just have an outline, they could be filled, whatever. Whatever the first button is that appears in the design, that's what I make as the default button style. That's just my approach. I know I'm doing like a lot of theoretical throat clearing here, explaining how I do things. And then anything that will come after this will modify, right? Usually with a class or something like that. Okay, what else? We need styles for screen reader text, so we'll do an SR only. And I'm going to go grab these styles from my GitHub. Do I have? They might be right here someplace. Actually, I don't want to go back this far. Let's just grab it from our last project. And we'll also take a look here and see if there's anything else. We'll do some anchor element styles. We'll do some heading styles. A section. Boy, I really need to work on my own reset. I think I say that every single time we start a new project. So here's our screen reader only text. We are using wrap a lot, so let's just do a quick wrap. I'm going to do max width, 75 rems, margin 0, auto. And then let's do a quick section set of styles. Usually for section, I just do padding. So I'm going to do 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. 3 rems is like 48 pixels. That works pretty well. We did do a font size up here, 100%. That's good. Let's go ahead and do H1, H2, H3. I think for our headings, well, the headings are by default going to get our font family of Tinos. Really what we need to do is we just need to change the font weight. That's really all we need to do for the headings. Although headings by default are already bold, I'm still going to do this. I'm also going to change the line height. Oh, we forgot to do line height on the body. So for the line height, I'm going to change it for headings to 1.25. We need to add line height to the body. Whoops. I like to do 1.65. That's just a number that I find works really well. Line height is meant to be a unitless number. You could use a unit like pixels or rems. It's supposed to be a unitless number. It is a multiple of the font size to establish the line height. And I like it to be a little narrower or a little less on headings. If you see heading text wrapping, I think it looks a little bit better. And I think I'm going to change the margin also. I want 0 margin on the top, 0 margin on the left and right, and 1 rem of margin on the bottom. Not going to change any of the paragraph styles for now. The default paragraph styles are generally a margin, a rem of margin on top and bottom. Just depending on the project, I change those. What else do we have here? And then let's do some quick styles for anchor, for links, anchor elements. Let's look at our design. Do we have... So we know that these are going to be anchor elements. It would be nice if we had an accent color that was like a dark blue or a dark green. And then maybe on hover, we see an underline. And then that would make styling these easy. I'm leaning towards a green color, so we need to find our accent at some point here. Maybe when we work on our images, I'm going to lean towards like a dark green or some kind of green that has enough contrast to be able to tell that it's a link. So let's make our default anchor elements, our default links, not have an underline, but on focus, hover, active, we see an underline. So we'll go up here. So we'll say text decoration, none. Well, actually, no, that's not true. We're going to do text decoration. I think we want to do text decoration thickness and text decoration color. So we'll say transparent. And then text decoration thickness, I'm going to say 2 pixels. And then we'll do text underline offset. I'm going to do 3 pixels, and we can adjust that if we need to. And then the color is going to be our accent color, whatever that ends up being. Totally not accessible to have this orange color against a white background. So we will have to find something that's obviously more accessible. And then we'll do a transition. So the transition will be the text decoration color. And I'm going to set this to 300 milliseconds, and we'll do an ease in out. And then we'll do a focus, a hover, and an active state. And the text decoration color will be the accent color. There we go. And so we can test this here on our navigation, but obviously this is going to change. All right, I think this is a good set of beginning styles, so we can jump into the header now. And let's see here. So Said says, I'm not sure if this was a question to address interview questions on the ongoing topic over time. I'm not sure if that's in response to something or meant to be a question. Angela, by what name should we remember you on comments? I mean, you can just call me Angela. Is that what you're asking? I know a lot of people come into the chat and they are very polite and very respectful. They call me ma'am, and that is very sweet. It's okay if you just want to call me Angela. So I don't know if that's the question that you're asking. It's okay. It's okay to just call me Angela when you leave me comments or things like that. I'm good with that. And then there's another conversation happening in the chat that that is happening that I don't need to read out loud because it doesn't involve me. I'm getting used to that as my audience grows, people chatting amongst themselves. So, okay, Malik, come on, stop. Okay, we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. Yeah, just call me Angela if I think that's what you're asking me. So, it's no problem. Just call me Angela because that is my name. Okay. So you can see now that our wrap is in place. So we need to hide a few things, especially in this header, because we have we have a search drawer. So let's figure out what those are, because we're going to display none those. So here's our social navigation. The search button is visible on desktop. Here's our search drawer. So the search drawer needs to be hidden until we specifically show it with JavaScript. These buttons are for mobile only, right? So we need to hide these. So let's start with the menu button. Let's start with that. We just need to hide a few things before we can really style the header. So navigation, menu button, we are going to display none these. Display none makes it so it is not seen by keyboard navigation or a screen reader. It is not accessible, and on desktop, that is what I want. So we are hiding now those two buttons. Let's see here. Menu button, display none. Okay, so those are hidden. So now I also want to make sure that the search drawer is also hidden. And we'll do this here first. I am also going to make the search drawer display none because a button controls whether or not that's visible. I don't want that drawer to be accessible by a screen reader or by keyboard navigation. The expected behavior is that a screen reader or keyboard navigation would focus on this button. The user decides if they want to see the drawer. If the user doesn't want to see the drawer, they should be able to continue through the document without having focus or a screen reader go into the drawer. Display none is the exact way to do this. So now you can see here that we just have the button, but we don't have the drawer. So that's perfect. Now we have a nice clean slate here, nice clean header to style. So we're going to start with, and actually let's update our name because we changed the name of we changed the name to Colorado. And we even downloaded pretty pictures of Colorado. So there we go. And Malik says, me and Rahul are brothers now. Our shared determination to learn and get better. I love that. Everyone's bonding. One moment. Hold, please. So we have quite a bit of padding on the top and bottom. We have this center section right here, and then we have this over here on the right, but we don't have anything over here. So I have to think about that. How am I going to get that to align? So if we had something here, something in the middle, and then something on the right, that would be super easy with like grid or Flexbox is probably what I would use. But I need this to be in the middle, and I need this to be over here. Why do I feel like we just did this, but it was flipped? We had a logo. I feel like we had a logo over here on the left, and then we had something in the middle that needed to be centered. How did I think I used Flexbox, and I must have like calculated the width. So we've got the logo container and the social navigation. And then the social navigation and the button need to be together. So I think that but I want the button to be, for the search drawer to be a sibling of the search drawer. I don't want it to be buried in a container that's a sibling, which I think would be fine because the search drawer is going to be like position fixed. So it's okay if it's inside of a container. And then we have this for mobile. And I also want this button to be a sibling of the navigation. I think that will work, but we need to put a container around the search container. So now actually I think that needs to be around, also needs to be around this. So let's just call this logo container, search container, logo container, social, search container. So now we have these two containers. Perfect. This is for mobile, and then this drops beneath. Which makes me think that the wrapper needs to be here, right? And then this all drops beneath the wrap. And then the wrap is the parent to all of this, which means this button should also not be in the wrapper. And now the button is still the sibling. Is that going to matter though? Because this button does need to line up with all of this. I mean, does it have to be a sibling? If it has an ARIA control for the main menu, we're saying what it controls. So does it need to be a sibling? We're not actually changing the flow, and it will come immediately before, right? Because we do need this element to be really separate in order to drop below. So now we've got these two things. We have this logo container and we have the social search container. And then we have the navigation that comes immediately after. Do you see here why it's so important to spend this time on your markup before you get too deep into your CSS? There are so many considerations that you have to take when it comes to accessibility. But yeah, I think this will work. The reason this works is because we have ARIA controls. So the screen reader knows what this controls and can tell the user what this controls. So I think this is solid. I think this will work. Okay, so now how do we want to... We need this to be over on the far right, and it is all the way up against the edge, and we need this to be in the center. So let's just get them styled independent of a layout, so we know we're going to have to take the width of this. Once it's styled, we will need to know the width of this in order to do that. Yeah. So really it's the header. We'll give this a little padding. I'm going to do 3 rems on the top and bottom. And then we'll do the header, wrap, and I'm going to do display flex. Whoops. And we're going to do flex, flow, row, no wrap. I got to remember it's no wrap. Justify content. We'll just do right now. We'll just do space around. That's going to change. Align items, center. And then let's style this. Which is this right here. So social navigation is our outer container. Social nav is the UL. So that's really what we want. That's the social nav. So we have to remove that padding and margin that the browser gives it by default. List, style, type, none to remove those bullets. And then I'm also going to do display flex, flex, flow, row, no wrap, justify content center, or maybe not center. This could really help us. Maybe we just want to do flex end. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm actually not sure yet. Align items center. And then we'll just give this a gap of 1 rem. And that will probably change, but for now I think that's fine. Oh, and then we have to make sure that that search icon lines up against the edge, which is this right here, which means that social search container also needs Flexbox. So I'm going to put that right here. This one is more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I love it. I'm here for it. So let's also do display flex. Flex flow. I love a sneaky complicated design. Flex flow, row, no wrap. Justify content. I'm also going to say flex end. I'm not 100% sure that that matters, but that's just what I'm going to do. And then I feel like this has a bit of an extra gap here, right? So let's do a gap of 2 rems. There we go. And clearly these are too big. We're going to make those a lot smaller, but an accessible tap target is 48 pixels by 48 pixels. So the tap target will still be this big, but the icon will be smaller. It'll just have padding to compensate for the tap target. So let's make sure. So we want the anchor elements, the thing that actually to be the thing that triggers the hover active focus, which is totally appropriate since it's the link itself, to have the padding, and we want the SVG to be triggered by that. So there's going to be a couple things here that happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that these anchor elements are display block. We need that little extra help with the styling. They are display inline by default. You really cannot add padding and margin to something that is display inline. I mean, you can, but it's just not going to work the way you want it to. So we're going to make that display block. Going to add some padding. If we add 1 rem of padding all the way around, that is the equivalent of 2 rems total. And then we could say social nav SVG, which we already changed to display block. We could change the width of these to 1 rem and the height to 1 rem. And that would equal 3 rems. Padding 1 rem on either side plus 1 rem equals 3. That's pretty small. But here you can see 48 by 48. So let's adjust these numbers a little bit. Let's make this 0.75, which is equal to 1.5. And then these would also be 1.5. And there we go. We still have 48 by 48. I like that size. That looks about right to me. Let's do the same thing for our search icon. Just close this up quick. So here is our search button. We're going to style both buttons to be the same. Search button. So we want the button to be padding 0.75 rems. And then we want the search button SVG to be a width of 1.25 rems and a height, or excuse me, 1.5 rems. There we go. Now everything is the same size. And again, our button, 48 by 48, that's the minimum tap target. Now let's update these colors. So the button is that's a stroke. So we're going to change the color to, I know it's like a slightly lighter gray. I'm going to change it to black because I don't know if this is even accessible. I'm not even going to check. I'm just going to change it to black. And then these have a fill. So I'm going to change these to black as well. There we go. Let's make sure now that these have a background color of transparent. Background color, transparent. Background color, transparent. And then on hover, focus hover active, let's invert the colors. Let's make the background black, or we could use our accent color, and then let's make the SVG invert as well. So we'll do it with the search button first and see how we like it. So we'll do search button, focus, hover, active, and we'll change the background color to, well, should we just go ahead and use accent? And then that's the thing that will get updated once we even decide what that color is. And then we'll go ahead and put a transition on that. So we'll say transition. We're transitioning the background color. 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. That's just the timing that I like to use. You can use whatever works for you. Now we are going to do the same thing for the SVG. I'm actually just going to copy this, kind of borrow these. So when we focus, hover, or the search button is active, we want to trigger the SVG styles. So we'll do add SVG here. And what are we transitioning? We're transitioning the stroke. So we're going to go from black to, I guess, our accent color, right? And then we'll go ahead and transition that stroke. 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. Again, this accent color, not accessible. What's happening? What did I do wrong? Oh, right here. That's why. Okay. So it needs to be, maybe we don't need to change it. We probably don't need to change this. Or it would be white. Maybe it would be white. That means that we need to make sure our accent color, whatever we choose, is accessible. The white and the black have to be accessible against its background when we choose our accent color. So whatever green color we use, which is the color I want to use. And then I like to give my icons like a little, I'm not a border radius gal, but I do like to give my icons a little bit of a border radius. So I'll do that here. Border radius. I like 5 pixels, just a little something to smooth off the edge. There we go. Okay, so this is working for me. So let's apply this to our links now. Let's see, I'm memorizing this. So we're going to do, I'm just going to copy it. Just going to copy it. Well, I don't need to. So this is the social nav anchor element focus, social nav anchor element hover, social nav anchor element active. And then we'll transition this. We're transitioning the background color. 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We'll change it from black to white. Copy this. So when we focus on the element, we're triggering the SVG. When we hover on the element, we trigger the SVG. When the element is active, we trigger the SVG. And we are changing the fill to white. And then we want to transition that. Transition the fill 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. There we go. And then we'll give these a little border radius. Right here. Hang on. Wrong spot. That's the SVG. We need to do it on the anchor element right here. There we go. And I kind of feel like these do not need to be that far apart. They need to be they need a little bit of space, but not that much space. So let's pull this in a little bit. We'll just do like a 0.25 rem. And then let's see here. Let's change that to 1, see how it looks. I just want there to be a little bit of space in between there, so the whole thing isn't hot. Maybe this could be just a little bit more space. Yeah, I like it. Looks good. I think these are a tiny bit bigger than the mock-up, but I like it. I personally like it. So I'm gonna stick with it. And let's see here. So Rahul is working on his personal website, and he's using this for the icons for his personal website. It looks like the icons from the awards, AWWW awards site, phosphor icons. We have an active chat today. I love it. And Malik and Rahul are sharing their links in the chat to their respective GitHubs. So check those out. Check those out. I'm super excited. I'm going to check those out myself. So I'm excited to see what you guys end up doing. This is a good time to remind people, hey, if you haven't liked the video yet, would you be so kind as to do so? It helps the algorithm, helps push this type of content out to more people who might be interested in this type of thing. Subscribe if you're not already. I would appreciate it. Yesterday, we surpassed 2,000 subscribers, which is, I don't know, I thought that was really cool. So thank you to everybody who subscribes, who watches this content, engages with the chat, leaves comments. I just appreciate all of you so much. So I'm having a blast. I love being on YouTube. I dreamed about being on YouTube for years. I was too scared to do it. And then I finally started doing it about 1.5 years ago. It was August 2024. And I am so happy that I decided to, because I love being here and I love you guys. So, okay, back to it. So what else do we need to do here? I think Colorado needs to be uppercase, and I think this container needs to be centered. And then we're going to figure out how to do that spacing. I have an idea of what to do, because I think we just did this in another project. I can't think of which one it was, but we had to do this and it worked fine. It's not maybe as dynamic as I would like it to be, but not everything can be dynamic and perfectly dynamic all the time. It's just not how the world works. So, okay, so we have our logo container. I'm literally just going to logo container. We're just going to do text align center. That is the easiest way to deal with that, I think. And then, oh, these are both uppercase. All right, no problem. So we'll do text transform uppercase. We'll give this a little letter spacing, maybe 2 pixels. This should be fewer words, I think. Fewer words. And I'll think of a good tagline for our site. There we go. So here's how I'm going to do this. The width of this container is 272 pixels. So for the wrap, we're going to do, well, we're already doing Flexbox for the wrap. So I think we just need to do a width here. So for the logo container, I'm going to say width calc 100% minus 272 pixels. And then for this, to think about this, it's already, but I need it to be in the center. I'm thinking about how did I do this last time? Okay, I have to go look. I can't remember. What did we do this on? Was it the coffee site? It wasn't on the scenic site because these were just at the edges. I don't think it was our coffee site. Was it the responsive video gallery? Yes, it was the responsive video gallery. Because these were different widths on the left and right. These were different widths, but I still needed to keep this in the center. So let's see here. How did we do that? So here's the header. Here's the H1. Let's zoom back out here on this. So here's the header. Here's the H1. And then here was the nav. Yeah. So I put everything inside this nav element, which is totally appropriate because a nav element represents navigation. But I still needed this to be in the middle. How did I do this? How did I pull that off? So I did a calculation. So this was 233.445. Is that how big? 230. How did I do? I don't know how I did this. 20. It must be 477.04. Is that? Let's see here. 477.04 divided by 2. Not quite, but close. So I think so if we did space between, that would put both of these containers up against the edge. Take that out, right? It would put both of these containers up against their respective edges. And we want this to be all the way over to the right, but we want this to be not in the middle of the remaining space. We want it to be in the middle of the document. So how do we do that? I think we have to cut this in half, right? So this is 272 pixels wide. 272 divided by 2 is 136. So we would want this to be a width of 100% minus 136. Is that right? No, I think it needs to, is it half or a quarter? It would be half if there was something, is it a quarter or maybe it's a third? 272. I don't know. I don't know. Divided by 4. 68? No, that's not what it is. So it's 100%. I have to think about this. Wouldn't it be half? Is it 50%? Maybe it's a calc 50%. I have to think about this. Okay, I need a different approach here. So this is text align center. So it's already in the center. The width of this is I think it's actually double. Is it 272 times 2 minus 554? Maybe I'm going in the wrong direction. No. I think it's plus 272. Plus, no. Because that's more. Okay, I have to ask this question to ChatGPT. Okay. I'm gonna do this. This is a really great question for ChatGPT because I'm getting confused by the math. This is my header mockup. I'm using Flexbox. The width of my icons on the right is 272 pixels. The container on the left should be centered in the document, not just its container. Here's my CSS. Margin left auto. Interesting. Text align center. Is that with or without the calculation? On the logo container? Almost. Does it still need? It's not in the center though. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. I feel like there's a simple solution that I just can't wrap my head around. Right now you're doing this flex container space between, giving the logo, pushing it with that guarantees it's centered inside the remaining space, not centered in the document. Since the icons only exist on the right, Flex has no idea that you want visual symmetry. The clean solution, you need equal space on both sides of the centered element. Since the icons are 272 pixels wide, create an invisible spacer on the left that is also 272 pixels. Option 1, add a left spacer. Okay, so we said that, right? Even better, cleaner. Absolutely position the icons. Really? Really? I don't want to do that. I'm going to use the spacer method. I feel like this is a math problem, not an alignment problem. It is a math problem, but the math you're trying to do can't work reliably with Flex alone because Flex is centering within leftover space, not relative to the page. Let's pin it down with numbers, what Flex is doing. Say your header content area is W, right icon width, R equals 272 pixels. Left side, nothing, effectively 0 pixels. The middle area you're giving the logo is width minus the right. When you center the logo inside that middle area, its center adds up. At center equals width minus the right divided by 2. But true page center is width divided by 2. Those only match if the right equals 0. The offset is always the width divided by 2, so the item on the left, minus the width minus the item on the right divided by 2, which equals the right divided by 2. So your logo is always shifted left by 136 pixels, which is half of 272. That's why it never looks centered on the document. That's not you being bad at CSS, it's the layout constraints. So yes, math can solve it. You just need math that affects the position, not the width. Option A, keep flex. Center logo with absolute plus transform. Actually, that's a pretty good idea. With absolute plus transform, math free in practice. That literally says put the logo at the document center, and it does, regardless of icon width. Option B, solve it purely in flow with math by reserving equal space on both sides. This is the spacer approach, but you can do it without an extra div using a pseudo element. That's math in the sense that you're balancing the equation. Option C, use CSS Grid. Best math layout tool for this. Grid is literally built for center the middle track regardless of side track widths. So we would do header, wrap, display grid, grid template columns, 1 FR, auto, 1 FR, align items, center. Logo container, grid column 2, text align center, social search container, grid column 3, justify self and display flat. Okay. Grid, let's try this grid right here. Yeah, I feel like, let's try this. And if this doesn't work, I will absolutely position the logo, not the icons. Well, maybe it doesn't matter. Whoops. I don't know if I still need text align center. Oh, I guess I do. Did that work? You guys, that worked. Did it work? That worked. Look at that. We learned something new. This totally worked. Beautiful. Nice. I know people wanted to, Rahul, I'm so sorry. I just really wanted to figure it out. Rahul was like, push it to GitHub so I can try it. It worked. It totally worked. Yeah. This is exactly the way that I love using ChatGPT. I don't need ChatGPT to write code for me. I mean, maybe a little JavaScript for me once in a while, but this is the kind of problem solving that I love to do. And the rest of the document looks a little off because we're still styling, but this worked. This worked. So here's our header. Here is our wrap. So if we look inside the wrap, we should be able to see it. Yeah. Love it. Let's do some math here. So, okay, so we know that it's 1200 pixels wide minus 272 because it says 272 pixels, and I don't have any other width defined here, do I? No. And then this is 444.56 pixels. So 1200 minus 272, 928 minus 444.56. Wait a second. Okay, so this is just calculating that container. It's not calculating the whole container. 444.56. Times 3. Okay, well, this works. This works. We found a really clean solution. So this is one of those things. I'm not going to remember how to do this, but I am going to remember this situation and that we had a project where we did something like this. We didn't need to put in like a pixel value. We didn't need to put in a spacer. So this is like a pure dynamic solution, and I'm here for it. And we also didn't need absolute positioning. I have no problem with absolute positioning when it's appropriate. It's aggressive, but it's totally appropriate in a lot of situations. And if I hadn't come up with this, if ChatGPT hadn't come up with this for us, I absolutely would have done that. And it would have been fine. So, nice. Yes, ChatGPT did it. ChatGPT for the win. Perfect, perfect, perfect example of AI helping with front-end development. So, okay. What's next? Let's see if we can get this, at least the desktop version. We have about a half hour left. At least get the desktop version of our navigation up and running. So I think that we are going to need to put a wrapper around our navigation right here. Well, we can, you know what, we can treat this. The main nav will be our wrapper. All right. So the main nav, we're going to remove that padding and margin that the browser loves to give unordered lists. And then we'll say list, style, type, none. Whoops. And then let's go ahead and just add wrap, since we already have those styles defined. There we go. And these are our submenus. And then the main nav, we want to make sure our submenus are hidden. The submenu should only be visible if somebody chooses to interact with this button. So it's going to be display none for the submenus. So we'll do class submenu to hide those. There we go. And then on the main nav, these can be display flex, flex flow, row, no wrap, justify content, space between, align items, center. Okay, they're still not lining up. That's probably because I made those SVGs display block. What else is going on here? Oh, is it because this is inside the wrap and it's doing display grid? Okay. Hold please 1 moment. All right. I just had a sneeze attack. Tell me if this happens to anybody else. This is how I know I'm going to sneeze. I get intensely nauseous. Like I'm either going to sneeze or I'm going to throw up. That's how I know I'm going to sneeze. Let me see here. What's happening in the chat? ChatGPT took Rahul's job. Rahul is an excellent problem solver. Okay. Let's get back to it after we were so rudely interrupted. Oh, Malik coughs a lot before he sneezes. So interesting. It'll just hit me like this wave of nausea. So it hasn't always been like that. It literally started happening probably 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know why. And I can remember very clearly being in a meeting at St. Thomas, and I suddenly just got hit with like this wave of nausea, and I would thank God I was remote. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. And then I sneezed and I was fine. So, and it's been happening ever since. So anyways, things that nobody cares about. Okay. This wrap is taking these grid styles, so that's not going to work. So that's fine. I'm going to take the wrap class out and we'll just use this. So we'll say Max width 75 rems. And I think that's probably all we need. Why are you still getting all of those styles? Did I not hit save? There we go. So now we have all of these items evenly distributed. We want the anchors to be display block inside their containers, and then we're going to go ahead and add some padding. We also need to make sure that anything with an SVG, so anything with a submenu right here, we made our SVGs, oh here, we made our buttons display block. So these buttons, so the buttons inside of the main nav need to be display inline block, and they should be fine. So we'll do main nav button display inline block. I still need them to be able to be styled with margin and padding, and we'll do vertical align middle. There we go. And we still need to center this, so I think we have to do margin 0 auto. There we go. And then let's make these the correct size. And Viraj is here. Hello. And we are working on a brand new build. Here is our design. We're working on a home page. Thanks for joining us. So this is the main nav SVG. I'm going to make these pretty small. So I'm going to say width 1 rem, height 1 rem. Perfect. And then let's change the stroke to black. There we go. What else we got going on here? So we have a lot of padding around our header. Oh, I guess that's appropriate. You know, I wonder if we want does the navigation need to be inside the header? I always put it inside the header. Does it matter? Let's change where we put our padding. Let's put our padding on the wrap. Yeah, let's put our padding on the wrap instead. So right now we have it on the header. And then let's change these to display block. And I'm going to give them like a rem of padding. Oh, display actually inline block, because we don't want to push those away. And we'll also say vertical align middle, because the anchor elements, okay, so the buttons are children, not siblings. So I think this will still work. No. Oh, I didn't hit save. Okay, there we go. So the anchor element and the button is a sibling, and the unordered list is also, the submenu is also a sibling. Yeah, I think that works. I think that works pretty well. The button is not, I think we said that, right? Didn't we talk about that when we were doing the markup? We didn't want, because we want you to be able, we want the user to be able to click on the anchor link and go to the respective page. We don't want the button or the submenu to be a part of the anchor link. So this is a sibling, and this submenu is also a sibling. I feel like that's the right way to do things. And then if you were using the keyboard to navigate, so let's just come through here. The anchor element and the button are getting focus separately. Now that doesn't mean that when you hover on the anchor element, it can't still trigger the submenu. It absolutely can. But that's one part of the user experience. That is a desktop experience with the mouse. It's not the mobile experience, it's not a screen reader experience, and it's not the keyboard experience, right? So you have to take into account the fact that every single person who comes to this site is not a person who is using a mouse or a trackpad, right? So, you are doing great, thank you, but when are you going to use Tailwind? Never. Not on this channel. This is annual wait for React. Yeah, maybe you might not have been here when I talked about that. So this is a vanilla channel. It's not that I don't think that Tailwind or React are important. They are absolutely important. Probably gotta really know that in order to get a job, right? But this is a all vanilla channel. That's what we focus on here, is just doing vanilla. So you're not going to see me work on any projects with React or Tailwind, because this is just the lane that I've chosen for YouTube and for my personal projects. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't ever use those things in client work or in a job. I haven't been asked to yet. Personally, I'm a Vue user and an Angular. I've worked on a handful of things with Angular, which I really like. But that's for employment, client work, freelancing, consulting, whatever. This channel is all vanilla. So I am sorry to disappoint. I am sorry to disappoint. But it's good that you ask those questions, because that gives me a chance to remind people of what it is that I do here and why I do it. So, and also thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Okay, so this is looking how I want it to. So let's just get some of these borders in here. We can wrap this one up for today. So how are we going to get borders in here? You know what we probably need to do is we probably need to use grid, don't we? Because we don't want those gaps in between the items. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we need those to be um, evenly spaced. Am I right? Am I right about that? I suppose I could just, we have, what do we have here? I either have to define, if we used grid, it would be like repeat 8, 1FR. Or, since we're already using Flexbox for the LIs, we would just say what? Calculate a width of 100% divided by 8. And Rahul says, what if we used Flex 1 on the LIs? I'm here for it. I've read the documentation on using the Flex property a million times, and it just never seems to work. It never seems to work for me. Yeah, and Rahul's saying no justify content on the UL. Yep, we've got justify content right here. Main nav is the UL. Flex 1. Look at that. Beautiful. And then maybe instead of space between, this would be center? No, center didn't work. I think the LIs need to be center, text align center. Just like that. Look at that. Rahul for the win. All right, and now we can put borders. So on the UL, we're going to put a border all the way around the UL. Justify content doesn't need to be there. What if it makes me feel good? What if I just like it? Okay, I'll take it off. And then we're going to do border, 1 pixel, solid, and I'm going to use this gray color. And then I'm going to put a border on the right, but not on the last item. Border right, 1 pixel, solid. And then we'll do the main nav, LI, last of type, could use last child, border, right, none. There we go. I love it. Okay, so those need to be, now let's just start doing a little bit of styling of the text itself. So we'll say text, transform, uppercase. I usually do a little bit of letter spacing. Probably doesn't like the letter spacing. We're running out of room here a little bit. Doesn't like that uppercase. Yeah, this would work too. You could just establish that relationship. So that would totally work. This works. So I'm going to do this. Hang on, there it is. So this does not like the text transform. I think we could just make the text a little bit smaller and it would be okay. We could go down to like a 0.95 rems. Yeah. And could we still get away with a little bit of letter spacing? Just curious. We should maybe just adjust some of our padding. Although we really want the entire thing to be it really shouldn't matter what the padding is. But this is display inline block. Well, let's give this a little bit of padding. So we'll stick with 1 rem of padding on the top and bottom. I'm going to do 0 on the left and right. But we really want this entire thing to be clickable. But if I say with the 100%, it's going to push that button out of the way. Right? So that makes the links that don't have sub-navigation entirely clickable inside that container. You know what we could do? I would be open to absolutely positioning the buttons, but also these buttons are not going to meet the tap target, are they? They're 28 by 18. And they really need to be 48 by 48 to meet the tap target requirements for accessibility. So maybe they're with 100%, but if there's an anchor element with an unordered list, then we just recalculate, right? So these could be with 100%, but if there's a main nav with an anchor element, and yes, we can use this relationship, and there's a submenu, right? Then the width would be 100% minus, I'm going to say 48 pixels, and then we just need to style that. Oh, hang on a second. Actually, no, if there's an anchor element and a button. No, really, it's has. If the anchor element has a button, right? Yes. And then we just need to make sure that we style the buttons to be big enough. Yeah, that works. And we may want to cut down the text a little bit. So maybe the font size is 0.9 rems, which is still legal. And then once we make these buttons the correct size, so if the SVG is 1 rem by 1 rem, that means the button padding needs to be 1 rem. And that should space it out a little bit. So we're getting our tap target. Oh, it's not quite, is it? They're display inline blocks, so I think we're still accounting for some extra space because it's display inline block. So I think this needs to maybe be what, 50, 53? 52. Oof, that's pushed all the way over to the side. I mean, really, we just need to change the alignment of this if there's a button, right? So I'm going to change this to 52. And then I think the text, couldn't we do like text align to the right? Yeah. There's some weird alignment here. We need to obviously work on the alignment, but the whole thing, I think the button needs to be inside the anchor element. Yeah. Yeah, Rahul has a good point here. We may need to use, actually, yeah, maybe we really need to use display flex on the LI and not use the wrap. You know what? You're absolutely right. Yeah, and then we wouldn't have to do any of these goofy calculations. And then we don't have to make up for that. Yeah, that's actually an excellent point. I just need to make sure that the entire LI is clickable. But does the entire LI need to be clickable, or does the link need to be clickable? See, we have some, this was the whole point of why I wanted to add submenus into my process for accessible navigation, because these are the things I wanted to figure out. So this is good. I'm glad that this is happening. So let's do, Rahul has an excellent point. Let's do display flex. I'm going to take out with the 100% right now. I'm not going to worry about this. I don't think we don't need this. I don't think we need this. And then let's just do display flex flow. It's a row with no wrap, so it's never going to wrap to the edges. Oops. Justify content, center, align items, center, and then not going to add any gap for now. We have a little bit of padding on the top and bottom. Yeah. We have some questions to answer. We have some questions to answer because it's really throwing it off that the accessible tap target is 48 by 48. I guess here's what I'm wondering. Are all of these things exactly the same size? I feel like they don't need to all be the same size. They should be proportional to however big the word is. You know what I mean? So instead of flex 1, could it be like flex auto? Yes, there, problem solved. Um, this almost solved it. So Rahul is saying, and if you don't know, we also have display inline flex. Yep, all yep here for everyone. Display flex already has flex flow row no wrap, so no need to type it. So flex flow by default is row no wrap. I still type it because it just makes me feel good. So especially when I'm doing mobile and I need to remember to change it from no wrap to wrap. Tech Pickle is here. I think we can use an anchor tag and include the SVG icon inside it so that both the text and the icon become clickable together within a single LI. So the reason that I'm not sure about that is for accessibility. So if somebody's using a keyboard, I really feel like these two things need to be separate. They need to get separate. But I'm just not sure. Here's the other thing that I am not sure about. But if they're separate, maybe it doesn't matter. So it's very easy with CSS to make sure that when the mouse enters the LI, we are triggering the submenu and we could trigger the underline on the link. But does the entire container need to be clickable for the link? I mean, is the user going to expect to enter into this LI space, see everything transition, but when they click, nothing happens? Which makes me think that maybe that button needs to be inside the anchor element. But do they need to be separate? I feel like they need to be separate. Right. I know that this is shorthand. Flex flow, row no wrap. I am aware of this. Flex. So even if something is a default value and technically unnecessary to define, sometimes I still put it in, even if it's a default value. So I don't think that that's technically wrong. It might not be as elegant as some people like or prefer, but I very commonly forget that I've defined something as no wrap and that I need to change it to wrap for mobile. I feel like that has just happened to me so many times. And when I have it written out in the desktop version, it helps me figure out why my thing isn't working. So hopefully that makes sense why I choose to do that. Okay, so we have some things to think about here. Because changing this to Flex Auto solved the problem of making the container basically the size of the content, so that's good. But we have to, buttons need to have an accessible tap target of 48 by 48. I feel like the button needs to be a sibling of the anchor element, but I will admit that that's kind of screwing things up a little bit for me. I feel like this entire container needs to be clickable, not just the word itself. I can transition these things when the mouse enters the container, but that doesn't make it clickable. I guess I'm also now thinking that maybe this doesn't need to be an unordered list. Maybe this can be a nav element. This can be a div. I don't know. I'm just not sure. What other navigation is out there that we can just go look at? Okay, so here's Amazon, and they have like little submenus, right? Let's just, how do they do it? So they're using an unordered list. They have anchor elements. Okay, this is the submenu right here. Here's the LI. I'm going to move this down. So here's so it's an unordered list. There's the first item. Here's the second item, the LI. And then it's inside of a div. Okay. And then we have the anchor element, which is the link itself. And then we have the button, which is a sibling, not 48 by 48. But they also have a mobile app, right? And then they're obviously using JavaScript to pull up that submenu. But they've got ARIA here, right? So ARIA expanded false. So hovering on the anchor element triggers the submenu. So I said, yes, we could still make sure that hovering on the anchor element triggers the submenu. But the anchor element and the button are independent. So that was my original thinking. So I'm still good with that. I'm still good with this. I think what I'm having a hard time with now is the fact that I'm trying to be true to this 48 by 48 pixel. Maybe it doesn't need to be 48 by 48 on desktop. Does it only need to be 48 by 48 on mobile? Because that would solve all my problems. That would solve all my problems. But would it? Because this LI is still so big. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree that they should click separately. Anchor tag to navigate and button to open the submenu. Malik, I don't know if I could properly summarize everything that I've gone through in the last few minutes. Comment says, "You are doing great work. Keep it up." Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, well, here's what I would like to do. I would like to sleep on it. You know what I'm really tempted to do is make this a div and not have... That's not going to work though. I feel like I'm going to sneeze again. I just got nauseous. Maybe now's a good time to end this. Okay. Well, you know what though? This is good. This was the whole point of this. This is the reason I wanted to do this, because this is a problem that I feel like I've built navigation and submenus 5 bajillion times before. I've built submenus and navigate. I've done this 5 million times before, but this is really the first time I've made a concerted effort to make sure that this is accessible and it's working correctly on mobile. And there are just a lot of considerations to take into effect. So I know I've built navigation exactly like this in the past. And I also know now that it wasn't accessible. So I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to think about it overnight and maybe do a little independent research before Tuesday when we come back. If you're new here, welcome. Let's see here. Yeah. Malika's confirming that it probably needs to be 48 by 48. Nasanal. Oh, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Nasanal? New here. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hanging out. And Rahul says, list item, not. This is complex. This is a complicated one. Not has button, anchor element display block width 100%. Okay, let's try this. Oh my gosh. I think this is going to have to be separate. I think this is going to have to go down here. So this isn't the anchor elements that have buttons. See, I feel like we still need to make sure that I'm not entirely sure how this helps. I feel like we're really just making sure that this is width 100%, and then if there is oh, I don't think we need this. I probably just forgot to remove this. So main nav, anchor element, plus button, width 100%, 100% minus 48 pixels. So the anchor elements by default have a width of 100%, but if there is an anchor element plus a button, oh, but this is backwards. So this would be anchor element has plus button, then it would be yeah, this is it right here. I think this is the better approach. And it looks a little more even to me too. Basically, it means the anchor which doesn't have a submenu should be 100% full clickable area. That didn't, but it didn't quite work. So I think this is the better approach right here, because we have to calculate that 48 pixels, right? So now we have, and we will see this demonstrated here with the keyboard. So when we tap through, boom, full area, full clickable area. Full clickable area minus the button. Full clickable area minus the button. There, we did it, we got it. And we're still staying true to our 48 by 48 pixel button. I feel like there's still a little bit of space though. Maybe it doesn't matter. So here's the button. Yeah, there's still a little bit of space there on the top and bottom though, right? And that's from the line height. That's from the line height. Because we need to make sure that this is display block. It has to be display block. Is that going to, yep, there it is, that fixed it. So there's our LI, there's our anchor element. Oh, we're still getting display block. Is it just that we need to take out the line height? So there's our LI. For the height is 46. Oh, that's from the border. That's from the border. I just want to see an equal height. So see now it's 55.76. The line height. Oh, that's because it's not 1 rem. Hang on, that's why. The math needs to math. There we go, 48 pixels tall, 48 pixels tall. Beautiful. Now I want to see an equal focus. Oh, we did it. Right there, we did it. So we just needed to change the line height of the anchor element because all of the text has a line height of 1.65. So if we take out this line height, you can see that that increases there. So by setting the line height to 1, we effectively remove the space on the top and the bottom. We don't even really need display block, I don't think. We don't even need display block. Do we though? I mean, technically it's still an inline element if we don't say display block. So I'm going to leave that on because I think it's the technically correct thing to do. So this works and it's relatively simple once we figured it out. So this spacing might look weird, but look at all of this now. We don't need any CSS trickery to fake this hover or this transition. This entire thing is clickable. That's exactly what we want. And of course, we want this to be completely independent. We want it to be a sibling, not inside the anchor element. And then with CSS, we can easily show the submenu by either hovering on the anchor or the button. We'll figure that out on Tuesday. So that's the next step. This is a beautiful place to leave off for today. I am so happy with this. And Rahul says, if you don't do a line item center in the LI, the sub menu button might be full height. Oh, that's a good point. Because we're basically centering the SVG inside the button using padding. So I think the default value for align items is stretch. So I don't even think it would really matter. But again, there's nothing wrong with including it. Rahul and I, here's what I think. I think Rahul and I have this battle. And by battle, I mean maybe like a friendly competition against elegance and not putting things in that aren't absolutely required, and my need to see things defined that aren't absolutely required. My desire to see things written down in the code, even if we don't always need them. And he very much defaults to, if you don't need it, if it's a default value, get it out of there. And that's harder for me. It just is. So as long as he doesn't mind, Rahul, as long as you don't mind a little friendly competition around that, yeah. And Saeed says, yes, beautiful. Thank you, Saeed. I appreciate it. Saeed is new here the last couple of days. We love having him. Monique Robinson says, I will watch the replay. I missed the beginning. It was an exciting one. We had an exciting day today. I'm really, really happy with what we figured out here. It looks even. It looks balanced. I could see where you may not like this amount of space here. It's a lot of space, but here's the thing. We are remaining true to our 48 by 48 pixel tap target for accessibility. That's really important. So I'm going to stand by this decision to keep this in here because we achieved everything else that we needed to achieve. So, and Rahul, his eyes are killing him because he's in Nepal. He's 12 hours ahead. It's 1:20 in the morning. So let's end this here for today. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. I hope it's not too frustrating to see me struggle through some of these things, but that is the whole entire point of doing this. I knew that I needed to get more practice in. I needed more reps. I needed to step up my game, and that's why I started streaming. I've shared that process with you guys. That's what we do here. So I hope I am inspiring you to practice as well. That is also the point of this, is that if you have a desire to be better at this and to do better and to improve your skills, you don't need to live stream the process, but you do need to get out and practice more. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Come back on Tuesday. What topic will the next class be on? We are going to continue to build this. So that's a good point. The next topic is going to be that we are going to continue working on the navigation. We need to make sure that we can decide what the behavior is going to be to show the submenus. We need to style the submenus. We need to optimize our images, pick our accent color, which I would like to be a shade of green, and then we need to start working on making our header and navigation mobile responsive. So that's what we're going to start working on Tuesday and Thursday this next week. I stream 4 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one.